Hi, I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week we're going to be looking at the books of September 30th, 2015, wrapping up 2 Secret Wars series. Let's go for it. First up, we have Inferno number 5, written by Dennis Hopeless, drawn by Javier Garrón, and colored by Chris Sotomayor. Man, this is a really good ending to a really, really good series. It wraps up the relevant threads. It does it pretty satisfyingly. But I gotta say, the art is the absolute star for me here. When Garrón actually gets to unleash hell, he owns it just beautifully. If you've been following this series, you know that the Darkchild, Illyana Rasputin gone full demon, is one of the main antagonists, probably the main antagonist by this point. And the way he draws her is, I think, a way that no other artist has. She's monstrous, she still looks very much like Illyana. She manages to be completely naked and completely non-sexualized at the same time. And yeah, she's just a really cool monster. Really cool design.
Right. And talking about unleashing hell, as one would expect for an Inferno miniseries that is allowed to end without consequence to greater continuity, this one is suitably apocalyptic. I mean, we knew this was coming, and I was still sort of shocked and pleased by the level of carnage.
How much do we love Dennis Hopeless's Madeline Pryor?
How much do we love Dennis Hopeless's everybody? But yes, Pryor, Havoc, Colossus, and Domino,
Boom,
of
Boom.
course. Boom Boom. Like, Dennis Hopeless, I'm really excited he's getting an X-Men ongoing because he gets what X-Men should feel like, or at least what a certain part of X-Men should feel like.
Well, and those were all characters who we knew he could write well, who he's taken and done really good stuff with before, except for Madeline Pryor, who I think is one of the most inconsistently and poorly written characters typically in the X universe after her first stuff. I mean, she's been all over the map since original Inferno. And this version is so cool because she's really villainous and she's really sympathetic. And that, I think, is, if you're going to go the villain Madeline Pryor route, the way to write her.
And that's one thing from the original Inferno that Hopeless very much captures in this one, which is you have lots of different bad guys and they all have their own goals. So you have all this like infighting and evil politicking and the good guys having to figure out where they stand in all of this. And that's totally here and handled just very deftly.
Yeah, this is making me really excited for when we get to Inferno in the podcast. Actually.
Oh, absolutely. What I'm also excited for is something we'll never see, which is what happens after this miniseries. It ends apocalyptically. We'll just not going to.
It ends on a really interesting note, though, and it ends on a note that I think in any other series would have been an end of an arc to be continued.
Yeah,
which is true of a lot of the Secret Wars books, and kind of makes sense because it's either that or just literally end the world. But oh, it's such a cool ending note. We're not going to spoil it. It's worth reading. But yeah, this is great ending to a great run.
Next is E is for Extinction, number 4, written by Chris Burnham and Dennis Culver, with art by Ramon Villalobos and colors by Ian Herring. So this is also the last issue of its own series, and it's a really weird one. And I mean, that's appropriate, because this is based on Grant Morrison's run of New X-Men, which itself was a really weird one.
And which notably ended on a really boring anticlimactic note.
Yeah, this one kind of does too. I mean, it's certainly consistent with Morrison's arc and the stuff that was going on at the time and even a little bit later. Weirdly enough, there are a ton of X-Men 3, the movie, like The Last Stand related beats. We are not fans of X-Men The Last Stand, and so...
Because it's not good.
There is that.
The fight scenes are good.
Yes, but the plot elements pulled from it, they don't fit my X-Men. On the one hand, that's disappointing. On the other hand, you know, I'm kind of okay with that. This isn't based on my X-Men. This is based on Grant Morrison's run on X-Men, taken to its logical sort of pop sensibility, nihilistic conclusion. And boy howdy, this is both of those things. So
this issue did not feel very coherent to me. And when I say coherent in this context, what I mean is that it just felt like one thing after another happened, and there wasn't much flow or causality. It felt arbitrary, it felt thrown together. That said, I also read it in the emergency room, hopped up on allergy medication, so yeah, I feel like the problem may in fact be that it's a book whose ideal audience is either more or less, medicated than I was at that point.
Very possibly. E is for Extinction has been, if nothing else, an interesting book. I'm glad it exists. It does strange and sort of brave things narratively and artistically, so that's cool. Whether I enjoyed it, in parts, definitely in parts. Overall, I'm not sure. I think so. It's weird if you enjoy X-Men being taken in strange directions. I think it's a good series to pick up. As for whether it'll stand the test of time, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, I know it's interesting, but I don't still feel like I can't say decisively whether or not it's good. So that just about wraps it up. What's our issue of the week?
Definitely Inferno number 5. This series has been just astoundingly good from start to, as it turns out, finish. It's got great characterization that's consistent with what we've seen before, but takes it in a new and interesting direction. Same thing with its relationship to the original Inferno. It feels of a kind with it without feeling derivative, goes in a direction that doesn't feel too far out there, but still tells us something new. This series has been firing on all cylinders the entire time, and I'm really pleased to report that it totally sticks to the landing. Doing a last issue right is hard. Yeah. Doing a last issue this damn near perfectly is rare.
Yeah, and we've been trying to say this every time we wrap up a series, but in this case, whether or not you're a fan of the original, but especially if you are, this is a book worth going back and picking up if you haven't followed it, either waiting for the trade or getting it now in issues.
Absolutely. So, Rachel, what's our panel of the week?
Well, after that, I feel like it's not going to come as any kind of surprise that our panel of the week is also from Inferno. We talked about the fight scenes, but this is not one of them. It's sort of the background of one of them. This is, I think, one of my favorite Illyana moments. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I love most about her, and one of the things that I love most about Illyana Rasputin in my favorite portrayals of her, is how casual she is when she's evil. She's not malicious. She's not a particularly intense villain. She just sort of smoothly slides into it. And this is both a great illustration of that and just a really, really well choreographed and laid out panel. It's funny, it's fun, and it's kind of horrifying all at once, and those are all things that the Dark Child should be.
So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you liked what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got from this week, Miles?
Oh man, you guys, this week we are finally doing Fallen Angels, one of our favorite miniseries from the 80s and also ever. It's got semi-talking lobsters, it's got a giant dinosaur, it's got some new mutants, some future X-Factor members, and it's just super weird and super fun, and we're very enthusiastic in this episode. So if you like that, or if you don't, listen to the episode.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything you see at rachelandmiles.com are brought to you by our rad Patreon supporters. We are an entirely listener-supported and ad-free project, and that's made possible by those cool folks. If you would like to join their ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching.
Meanwhile, we will see you next time for some more Secret Wars.